So in this eventful year, we are celebrating the 100th anniversary of Ludwig Wittgenstein's Tractatus logico-philosophicus, the German edition of which was published in 1921. And we're also celebrating the 200th anniversary of Fyodor Mikhailovich Dostoevsky's birth. He was born in 1821. But there's something more that connects these two thinkers than mere accidental numbers. Wittgenstein is considered to be the father of modern analytic philosophy, but he himself was more interested in reading poetry and literature than in other philosophers. So one of his favorite authors was Dostoevsky, and one of his favorite books was the Brothers Karamazov. And in this video, I will be reading from my own book, which I wrote on Wittgenstein and Dostoevsky, and I will be giving some examples of how the Brothers Karamazov may have inspired parts of the Tractatus. If you're new here, this channel is about bringing research in humanities closer to a broader audience. So if you'd like to support me, you could like and subscribe to this channel. As you may know, Wittgenstein wrote the Tractatus in the trenches of World War I. He was stationed as a soldier on the Eastern Front with the Austro-Hungarian army, and he was reading Dostoevsky at this time, perhaps in an effort to humanize the enemy. However, it is a little less known that Dostoevsky's novel, The Brothers Karamazov, was one of the few prized personal possessions he had with him and one of the few books he was reading at the time. Dr. Max Bieler, one of his close friends at the time, reports, in April 1916, Wittgenstein suddenly received orders to leave to the front. He took with him only what was absolutely necessary, leaving everything else behind. Among a few other books he took with him was The Brothers Karamazov. He liked this book very much. We often spoke about the figure of the Starets. Wittgenstein was in general inspired by Dostoevsky's moral and mystical teachings. And during this time when he was fighting on the front, he wrote in his diary, "In this sense, Dostoevsky is right when he says that the man who is happy is fulfilling the purpose of existence." The character of Starec Zosima in The Brothers Karamazov says almost literally the same thing. He says, "For people are created for happiness, and he who is completely happy can at once be deemed worthy of saying to himself, 'I have fulfilled God's commandment on the earth.'" Furthermore, Wittgenstein's treatment of ethics is also mirrored in the novel. Wittgenstein famously and cryptically claims that ethics and aesthetics are one, and ethics cannot be said, they can only be shown, gestured at. And there are also passages in the novel by Dostoevsky that point towards the way in which ethics is shown. For instance, there's an ethical significance to the way one of the main characters, Alyosha Karamazov, tells stories. He's said to be a very talented storyteller. It says, "Alyosha sat down at the table and began telling his story, but from the first words he lost all his embarrassment and in turn carried Lisa away. He spoke under the influence of strong emotion and recent extraordinary impression and succeeded in telling it well and thoroughly." He's talking to his friend Lisa about an incident that happened. Namely, there was an old captain who was humiliated publicly by Alyosha's brother Dmitri. And then Alyosha wanted to help him by giving him 200 rubles. However, the man was too proud to take them. So while he's recounting this tale to Lisa, they're trying to think about how to approach this man in a way that would allow him to save face and to accept the money. And then Lisa says to him, "Listen, Alexei Fyodorovich, isn't there something in all this reasoning of yours, no better of ours? Isn't there some contempt for him, for this wretched man, that we're examining his soul like this? As if we're looking down on him, that we have decided so certainly now that he will accept the money." So just in the way something is told, an incident is narrated has an ethical significance. We can be looking down on someone by narrating the story about him in a seemingly charitable way. So there's many ways to go wrong when talking about someone. And Lisa suggests that they have a moral responsibility towards the captain now that they're talking about him. Alyosha seriously states there is no contempt in him for that man. He quotes Starec Zosima in saying that most people need to be looked after like children, and some like the sick in hospitals. And he and Lisa rapturously swear to look after people this way. There's another famous quote in the Tractatus that can be read in the light of the Brothers Karamazov. If good or bad willing changes the world, it can only change the limits of the world, not the facts, not the things that can be expressed in language. In brief, the world must thereby become quite another. It must, so to speak, wax or wane as a whole. The world of the happy is quite another than that of the unhappy. So in the Brothers Karamazov, we find a passage that describes narratively the world of the happy and the world of the unhappy. Namely, there's two characters who outwardly are very similar, Alyosha on the one hand and Rakitin on the other hand. Both have a kind of a novice function in the monastery that figures prominently in the novel. And both are kind of free-floating characters that convey messages between other characters. However, they have a distinctly different attitude to the world. So in one scene, Alyosha is very disappointed by his teacher, Starec Zosima. And then in his disillusionment and in disappointment, he seeks out Grushenka, who is already the object of sexual rivalry between his father and his brother. So this is kind of like a really explosive combination, because he is sure that she will seduce him as well, and this will make the whole family situation explode even more. So that's how deep in a crisis he is. And Rakitin, the opportunist that he is, he sees way to earn some money because Grushenka has offered him money if he brings Alyosha to her. And in the beginning, everything goes according to Rakitin's plan. Grushenka springs on Alyosha's lap like an affectionate cat, and she says, "I'll cheer you up, my pious boy. No, really, will you let me sit on your lap for a while? You won't be angry? Tell me, I'll jump off." However, despite appearances, the story is already taking a quite different turn. Alyosha was silent. He sat afraid to move. He heard her say, "Tell me, I'll jump off," but did not answer, as if he were frozen. Yet what was happening to him was not what might have been expected or what might have been imagined, for example, by Rakitin, who was watching carnivorously from where he sat. The great grief in his soul absorbed all the feelings his heart might have concealed. This woman of whom he was afraid most of all was sitting on his knees embracing him, now aroused in him quite a different, unexpected and special feeling, a feeling of some remarkable, great and pure-hearted curiosity. And she notices his tender look and is touched herself. And in the end, they part ways as a brother and sister, as Dostoevsky says. Alyosha is overjoyed and Rakitin is completely destroyed and angry. And then comes the scene where the waxing and the waning of the world comes to bear. Because Alyosha, in his happiness and an ecstasy that he met a sister, as he says, Alyosha is in the fields under the starry skies. Over him, the heavenly dome, full of quiet, shining stars, hung boundlessly. From the zenith to the horizon, the still dim Milky Way stretched its double strand. Night, fresh and quiet, almost unstirring, enveloped the earth. The white towers and the golden dome of the church gleamed in the sapphire sky. The luxuriant autumn flowers in the flower beds near the house had fallen asleep until morning. The silence of the earth seemed to merge with the silence of the heavens. The mystery of the earth touched the mystery of the stars. Alyosha stood gazing at suddenly as if he had been cut down through himself to the earth. He fell down to his knees and he kissed the earth, enveloped by the stars above him, kind of showing this picture of the waxing of the world opening up above him. So if we're looking at the contrast between the world of the happy and the world of the unhappy, Rakitin shows a good example of the latter. His world wanes in contrast to Alyosha's. His plans frustrated and revealed, he shouts at Alyosha, "The devil take you one and all, go by yourself, there's your road." And then we see him turning abruptly into another street. He left Alyosha alone in the dark. So we see Rakitin walk off into some dark alley, his vision and his perception narrowed down by his anger. And we see Alyosha on a field under a bright sky full of stars. So I think it's this vision, this metaphor of space and how it kind of translates our emotional states and our relationships to the world as a whole that might have served as an inspiration for this cryptical passage in the Tractatus about the world of the happy and the world of the unhappy. So I hope you enjoyed some of my speculations and hope to see you again.